Folks, can you believe this? 100 expansions. Wow, I'm hyped up. Let's celebrate and create a proper liquid drum and bass roller with the all-new Rolling Tides expansion. Stay tuned and find out what exactly makes liquid drum and bass so liquid. But first, send us some love, hit the bell below and subscribe to our channel for more production tutorials. Rolling Tides features a vast collection of drum breaks, vocals, pads and bass presets. Pretty much every kit in this expansion is ready to start a fresh roller from scratch. It's incredible what the sound designers came up with this time. This expansion was created in collaboration with GhostTech, Mikado, Breaks, A-Sides and Pixis, and additional production from Sovereign, Night Drips, Move, Alex Kidd, Spiky T, and Sophie Mari. In the H2O kit, I found all the inspiration I was looking for. It contains some piano chords that I fell in love with right away because they invoke the memory of a train ride watching raindrops traveling down the window. Also, there's a second version of that same sample which is filtered. And this kit is just full of beautiful sounds matching these piano chords right away. There is a vocal pad H2O, which is this little sequence repeating over and over again. Perfectly in tune with the chords. As well as this vocal 174 H2O sequence with a couple of vocal chops arranged. And a one-shot sample called VOC H2O, which is perfect to be used in keyboard mode, so you can build a melody right away. I find the sounds of liquid drum and bass always carry a sense of longing, this bittersweet feeling between hope and sadness. And there are two more cymbal samples, a reverse crash cymbal, this one, and a classic crash cymbal hit. I deleted the rest of the kit and all the drum sounds because I intuitively knew that I wanted to reach out for another drum kit later on. Now, here's a little pro tip before we move along. Using loops in gate mode helps to arrange them later on into a pattern or on the timeline. You can still audition samples by holding its pad, but this only works when the Maschine project is stopped. When you move over to another gated sample and you hold the pad, the play marker will even stay in sync. So you can switch between different loops on the fly. This is especially useful for auditioning samples or finger drumming. Just keep in mind that once you start the project, the behavior of the pads will change. So let's listen to the first section of this song. Let's zoom in on this drum kit called Landbo. Landbo is actually a district in Helsinki, Finland. Shoutouts go to GhostTech. All these samples have a tambourine running in the background. Let's listen closely. Now let me show you a fun way to build up a rolling breakbeat from scratch. I'd recommend to set the metronome to 1/8 notes instead of the usual quarter notes, because we are quite fast. It's 174 BPM, and this eighth note will help me to keep track of time while I'm recording the pattern. So let's start with a 2-bar pattern using the kick drum and the snare drum only. First, I'm going to record a traditional 2-step pattern. I'm going to fill all the gaps now with additional notes coming from the 2 shaker sounds over here. And there's a second snare drum over here, which is a little bit lower in volume and shorter. Let's use this to add a pickup here and there. And I'll do the same with this kick drum over here. Love it. Let's mute the metronome for a second and simply double that pattern up until it's around 16 bars. I find that 16 bars is always a good chunk to work and arrange liquid drum and bass tracks. For the arrangement of the track, I would probably go in and add a couple of fill-ins in the very last 16th bar here of the section. But for now, this is great to roll with. Now, here's the thing. It only becomes a real roller if all the 16th notes of the pattern are occupied. In this case over here, I even stayed monophonic all the time, so the notes are not doubling up at any point. Then the break becomes one continuous motion and the tambourine is glued together. Now let's move over to Group C, which contains the bass H2O preset coming from the original H2O kit. But I moved it over to an individual group so I can create patterns more easily. Also, when going to keyboard mode, I can show you the basic melody really quickly that I've used. Nothing fancy. Just a couple of notes to back up the harmonies of the piano sample. I need to make an important point about mixing liquid drum and bass in general. The balance between drums and the bass line is really key, although it sounds a little different from what you would expect from other genres. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend to cut the low end of the drum kit to a point where it almost feels too thin. Here I have an equalizer on the group, lowering all the frequencies below 46 Hz by 6 dB. And I furthermore processed both kick drums with an EQ, taking out the booming 60 Hz frequency by around 8 dB. So all of this space is left to be filled in by the bass line as soon as it starts playing. This way, it will also sound great on high volumes. Just keep in mind, the kick drums should rather hit the chest and not the belly. So when the bass line comes in, it feels like a big moment of relief. Now the time is right to bring in some melodic fragments with a lot of delay. This preset over here is called Lumi Keys, and it raises the vibe and feels almost like a bridge element before the song goes back to its chorus. Rolling Tides also includes many more presets for Massive and Monarch. Let's add some special sauce. Instead of using only one pad preset, I came up with a crazy selection of 3 different ones, all coming from the Stray Light instrument. One is called Flamingos. The next one is called Healing High Grounds. And I got another note from the Eternal preset. All of those featured different bass keys. You can change these by going into pad mode, selecting one of the sounds and using the semitones and octave buttons up here. So all these 3 presets have a different bass key. It's A major 4, A major 3 and C5. If I put these 3 notes together, I already have my final melody. Together with the Voc Compi one-shot sample, I created this pattern here. So far, so good, but I wanted to take it a step further and bring in some Maschine wizardry. So what about resampling that whole loop into a new sample and chopping it up in a really cool way? Let's try this. Once it's running, I move over to the plugin settings and I tune down the loop by a whole octave to -12. Next, I activate gate mode and you'll notice that the sound stops playing. Once I start programming steps in the step mode, the sound will cut through. Let's bring in a beat delay and see if we can close these little gaps between the sample chops. Here it is. Let's turn down the feedback, turn on the stereo, go to and change the frequency spectrum a little bit with the split over here. For the last section of this track, I decided to take an unusual path. In the Piano Colors instrument, I found a preset called Brushed Chimes, and it features a fast and steady 16th note arpeggio pattern. It almost sounds like drum and bass played on a piano. Check this out. Sweet. Let's go into the mixer and bring down the drum and bass tracks. And bring that track home. Rolling tights is an absolute gem for every drum and bass enthusiast out there. I highly enjoyed surfing on a wave of up-tempo breaks and piano colors and hope you could pick up some new techniques along the way. As always, thanks for watching and see you again soon.